Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Technocratic podcast. Today, our guest is Cristele Lartigue. Cristele is a product leader who's run teams in a number of different verticals, including FinTech, media, low code, no code, and more. Her stints include time at AOL, Meta, Gilded, and Enduvo. I met Cristele last year when we started talking about potentially working together, and we've been talking ever since. I find Cristele to be very thoughtful about how to design products, as well as a strong understanding of engineering, basically the ideal product leader. So welcome to the podcast, Cristele. It's great to have you.
Thanks, Bobby. Hi, Mishka. Nice to be here.
Hello.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us. So as is always the case, I'm going to turn it over to my trusty sidekick, Mishka McCowan, to dig into some fun trivia questions to get us warmed up. Take it away, Mishka.
So these are, I will warn you, these are deep and these are deep and personal questions. So be prepared. They're not all. They're cheesy questions.
No,
They're
they're
not,
kind
they're
of
not
cheesy questions, Cristele.
So the first one is, what is your favorite book or movie that's impacted you?
Okay. So I have my favorite author is a French author whose name Jean Giono, and it's a wonderful books about regionalized kind of setups that happen at the beginning of the century, and it's very poetic, and so that's my favorite author. So that's my favorite book.
Wow.
That author.
That sounds so sophisticated compared to the books that I read. What was his name again?
Jean Giono.
Jean Giono.
Nice.
Okay, gotta look him up. Awesome. What about a movie, Cristele?
So movie-wise, I have several. I think the first one that came to my mind when you asked the question was Look Up, which I think it had a very big impact
awesome.
on my view of the political systems, and I think the real life is exactly how it's depicted in the movie.
Absolutely.
I understand it's
100%.
a humoristic movie, but however, I think it's really right on, and it's a reflection of today's society. I think it was right on.
Very
point.
nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Second question: if you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
Oh,
that's a hard one.
I am quite fascinated with people who were geniuses of their times. So I'm thinking of Da Vinci, for example, who was this amazing artist, but also an architect, but also a visionary, but also etc., etc., etc. So I think someone like that would be fascinating to have dinner with.
Yeah, the prototypical Renaissance man is someone who was multidisciplinary in everything that they did and did it all very, very, very well. So that would be fascinating. Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Last question. What is your go-to comfort food? What food makes you feel like you're home and comfortable and your favorite? Yeah.
I put this in there specifically, Cristele, because you're French. So I was like, there's got to be some amazing food from France that you like.
Oh yeah, amazing. I don't know, but very French indeed. I have this theory that I can live off only bread and butter for the rest of my life.
God, yeah. French bread. That is amazing.
Indeed.
Absolutely.
I have. And actually, my brother is with the U.S. State Department. He's currently posted to Paris. So we will be going probably soon to visit him. So I'm looking forward to it.
Nice.
Very cool.
No trivia questions. So how about if we turn our focus to our guest here? Did you have some questions for her about her early career?
I did. Obviously, Cristele, we've talked a bunch of times about the cool things you've been doing more recently. But if we go back earlier into your career, how did you actually get started in product?
Yeah, that's interesting because I didn't, that's not a career I had thought about. So originally, I have an engineering background,
Hmm.
and I was specialized in in programming operating system for
Oh, wow.
embedded systems, set-top boxes, satellites, cable, software, all that
Okay.
area. And what happened is, so I worked in this area, both in small startups, but also big satellite like Sky TV in New Zealand, which is
Hmm.
a substitute of the Sky England. And so
Yeah.
company, very small startups, all that mix. And eventually, I worked at the company that was making this operating system. It was acquired by
Okay.
Nagra, which is a Switzerland company, and a Swiss company. And they and there I became the educational manager of where I would give trainings to all the engineers using our
Mm.
system, and I was one of them. And I
Oh, cool.
so and I also was training the engineers on our proprietary code system. And
Mm.
so naturally, I became the best person to really understand the pain points they were going through, what we needed to provide them in order for them to optimize their code, in order to
Yeah.
have a better approach. So it's rather naturally that I became the product manager of that platform, because I knew what needed to be done, and I was talking from
Yeah.
experience and from user experience. So very early on in my career, my product journey began with the users in mind. So now
Okay.
it became a trend to move the product thinking to user experience, and
Yeah.
what's the outcome. But for me, that was always the starting point, actually. um,
That's cool.
yeah, so then I went on to work on product management in other firms, like I
Yeah.
switched from the TV to the streaming side, and so that was my job at AOL, where I was really consumer facing kind of product, where
Hmm.
streaming video player, and so on. So that's how I started my career.
Got it. That's really interesting. So you started training the users on the product that you had been building, and then you started getting into like the product management aspect of it. That's really cool. What was like the hardest thing in those early days to learn about product management?
uh, it's so the interesting thing is that I think it was really navigating through the what is good for your product, because of the research
Mm,
doing, because of the knowledge of the product, the trend research,
yeah.
and to be aligned with the overall strategy of the company.
Right.
So that was the hardest thing for me to learn, because I come from the engineering background, where it's kind of
Yeah.
remote from sales marketing. So I had to find a way to combine these business
Yeah.
strategies, and to understand the business strategy and apply it to what the product should look like. And
Yeah.
and it's a two-way street. So it was also my job to tell the business side what I was seeing, and what I thought would be best for the product and the users, and what
Hmm.
spin-off of that, basically. So that was for
Yeah.
me, that was the experience that was the hardest to learn, uh, because of my background, basically.
Hmm. What advice would you give to like engineers who are wanting to get into product? Because I see it more and more all the time, it feels like. I don't know how many product people are looking to get into engineering, but definitely engineers are looking to get into product. You've made the transition successfully. Obviously, you've had a great career. what's like the one or two pieces of advice you could give to some of our audience members who are engineers looking to move into product?
Yeah, it's the ability to detach yourself from the product development. And so it's good in one
Wow.
hand because you need to be able to make decisions and to help the engineers take the right options and to verify that everything is executed the way the product should be. However, you also need to the pitfall is to become the architect of the product as opposed to the product manager. So you need to really lean into the other sides of the business and the other stakeholders
Yeah.
and bring them in so that you
Right.
have these different opinions and different
Yeah.
and then you can establish
Yeah.
the product strategy and not just the
Yeah.
architecture of the product.
Right. That is so good. And that is, I was in a similar place, engineer at first, transition into product. One of the hardest things I found to do was exactly what you're talking about, which is like bringing in all the other stakeholders and getting their input and alignment and all of that. So communication is huge, basically, I think is what you're saying, right? And those soft skills. How can, like, in your opinion, engineers develop those soft skills? Is it that they have to work with a mentor, or is there some other way they can do it?
um Yeah, mentoring is good. It's really having this habit of um, I would say to have regular meetings with people that are outside of
Mm,
your area. So it can be a half-hour
yeah.
meeting with the sales department, with the marketing, and
Hmm.
see and get
Yeah.
to know what their concerns are and how
Hmm.
that may impact the product. And so
Yeah.
really trying to get out of your area of expertise because that can be your blanket, your
Yeah,
comfort
your comfort
zone.
zone, exactly.
Get
100%.
out.
Me and Mishka are all about the
It
comfort zone. We try to
sucks
get
us
out of
back
it, but
in.
we love our comfort zone. So that's yeah, it sucks us back in. Exactly. That's really good advice, Christelle. So early days, you make this big switch, and then did you have anybody like helping you on product, like a mentor type helping you in your early product days and developing your career, or do you just figure it all out yourself?
I had my manager at the time was someone who was very visionary and supportive, and he was always encouraging me to figure things out. And um, and so he created this relationship where he wrote in one of the reviews, he wrote, Cristele is using me as a tool from her toolbox. And that's exactly what I need, because he had lots of things to do. So he
Yeah,
would appreciate that I come to him to help me, as a um, resounding board where I can, bounce ideas and see how he would react to them. So I think
yeah,
I had this chance to have someone who would really encourage creativity, going after what I think is right, and really trusting uh, that process. and
yeah.
and that's how I got my early. um, for me, he was my mentor also, not only for
Hmm.
the product side but also for uh, leading teams, like how to lead teams.
Yeah.
That was great. I was lucky in that way.
That's interesting. Um, when I first got exposed to product management, it was when somebody was like, "Hey, Bobby, can we make like a roadmap?" And I didn't know what that was at all. And so I had to literally go to like Barnes and Noble to get a book on product management. There was no, I mean, Amazon was there, but and I forgot what book it was, but I just had to literally read books to try to learn what this thing was, you know? And then I got lucky enough that I worked with a really good product manager, VP of product while I was VP of engineering, and then he taught me a lot of stuff, which was good. But I find that there's not that, I don't know what you think about this, but there's not that many really senior executives or CEO types who know a lot about product or come from a product management background. You kind of just have to pick it up from your colleagues and stuff like that. I don't know. What do you think?
It depends where you land. When I was working at Meta,
Hmm.
there was lots of wonderful people, and
Yeah.
they would know, and the executives were very much versed into product management. So my learning curve went phenomenally
Way up.
up.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Earlier in my career, it was more the mentality was a little bit more old school, so it was more,
Mm.
top to down, kind of like cascading directives. And so we had to we were a very tight team of product managers. We were only four of us, and
Mm.
we were always pushing and pushing, but we were
Yeah.
doing that on our own. So it was a matter of
Right.
constantly convincing the upper management of our ideas and why we needed to do the way we were doing,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
forth. Yeah, so it
Yeah.
depends where.
Which is pretty common in most companies. Yeah. The convincing of upper management that you got to fund this product or it's going to work, and we need more people and all that stuff. Um, I'm curious, you mentioned Meta. When you got into such a large organization, how was that different for you in the experience of being a product manager?
Oh, so it was not, weirdly, it was not that different. It was
Mm.
actually being a product, and I was a product designer there, because parallel to my
Hmm.
product management, I've always been very interested in design in general. So I took classes at the Academy of Arts for industrial design, and so I had
Okay.
this parallel activity, and so I had
Yeah.
the occasion to join Meta as a product designer. Um, However, in my area when I joined, we were 40 people, and
Okay.
including contractors. So I think maybe half of them were employed. It's worked very much like a startup, in the sense that we were
Mm.
given free rein to really optimize the SaaS services that we were putting into place for Meta, the campus. And and I think that's really that was still um, in the days where Meta was very proactively daring and really making big bets. And so I
Mm. Okay.
so that didn't feel that different from a startup. And actually it was a startup on steroid, because it was a startup with
Yeah.
infinite resources.
Unlimited funding. Yeah. That's cool. Um, One of the things that I've seen is that, at least in my own experience, is that product design is kind of misunderstood. And it's hard to explain exactly what it is, but I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit because you've done this for a while. Like, how would you describe product design to somebody who's an engineer or who thinks of product management as like, I'm the CEO of the product and stuff? Where does product design fit into everything, you know?
Product design, in my opinion, is here to solve a problem that's presented to you. And I always say that it doesn't necessarily transpire into building a prototype. Product design is really
Okay.
start with asking the why first. And so,
Hmm.
why do you need this feature? Why do you need this application? Because more often than not, the client or the stakeholder comes to you with their solution in mind, because we are all visual people and we all have that, oh, it would be
Yeah.
nice if we could have this application that does this. And so the role of a product designer is to say, why do you need to solve this issue, and what's the user experience? So for example, the classic example is, you want to solve a line at the ATM, and so, but maybe, and so therefore you want to, the client will come to you with, oh, we need to make the ATM machine faster or better. The
Yeah.
interface is, but maybe that's not the solution. Maybe the solution is before that, where you can order the money from your phone, and then and then the ATM will
It's
look
a great example.
different than the hypothesis that was given.
Yeah.
So that's the role of the product designer, is really to question the why, and then really separate the question, the problem from the implied solution, and isolate the problem, and then focus on that to give the output and to propose a new solution.
God, okay, that's so good. Yeah. I've never heard it described that way. You always just think of it as UI UX, but it's the why behind all of it. How
Yes.
much of the domain how much of the domain do you have to know as a product manager, do you think, when you're first coming into a role? Like you were going to Meta, you were going to AOL, all these cool places. They have sometimes different domains, of course, and you hear these different, like, people give me different advice, like, hey, Bobby, when you're hiring a VP of product, hire somebody from the healthcare business or from the industry that you're going in for, that the business is for. And other people say it's the functional expertise or whatever. And then if you can have both, it's like the perfect storm, perfect person, whatever. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I was going to say exactly that. So I think it's so I'm a generalist. So I can, which means that I'm like a chameleon. I can hop into any industry, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
really apply the processes and the knowledge I've developed to provide with the best product, and the product strategy and the product roadmap and so forth. Um, you need to learn a minimum about the industry, and that is going to be from the first months that you're starting your job. You need to have a month of taking everything in, and taking extra classes if you need to, but you don't need to become an expert, but you absolutely need to understand all the acronyms and all the flows, and the problematics that from this particular industry. Um, and I think having a generalist at the top will give the opportunity for the product to have the edge that the others don't have, rather than if you
Yeah.
have someone that is extremely specialized. They are already in their line of work, and they are not going to have this ability to be as creative and as
Yeah.
outside the box. However,
Yeah.
you do need them, because
Yeah.
you need that check box, of, are
You
you
need the SME.
are you
Yeah.
all that. So
Yeah.
the dream team, you're right, the dream team is a combination of a generalist and an expert, combined together, that
Yeah.
they can do wonders.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really, yeah, I agree. And I mean, it's always different, like, levels of that combination. So, sometimes if you're building something complicated and very specialized, um, if the product is a certain kind of product, I feel like then that person with the domain knowledge has to be very, very, very strong in that, in that field. And you definitely need that combination of generalists and specialists. Mishka, I'm going to turn it over to you. I don't know if you have some questions for Cristele, but take it away.
I do actually. So, Cristele, you talked about your transition from being an engineer to being a product person. Now, later in your career, was there that transition from being a product, let's say, a product manager, to being more of an executive? Did you have a similar kind of journey there?
Yes, I think I was early in my career. I was not pursuing a career per se. I was just going
Mm,
where to do things that I liked, and later on, I realized that what I liked was really being able to help
Hmm.
with the at a higher level. So help with the strategy, the vision.
Hmm.
I'm a very creative person, so I want to, I have this idea, this shot to the moon basically, and so how to get there in
Hmm.
steps that actually make sense.
mm,
So this is what I realized I wanted to aim for. So when I was at Meta, I took on the side being able to advise startups that were uh, seed companies from Sequoia or other companies that were not in the product in the software industry, but so to help them establishing that type of strategy and that product thinking. And so that's how gradually I gained my confidence into doing more of this strategic thinking. And then later on, I quit Meta to pursue that
Hmm.
more defined career of okay, so this is that leadership that I'm really interested in, and so
Interesting.
that's what I want to
Okay,
pursue
so
now.
it was more of a transition into thinking away from maybe the creative and more onto the strategic side of things, and how the pieces fit together at the business layer. Now, you talked a little bit about your early
Mhm.
career, about getting to Meta, and it's like a startup with unlimited resources and the freedom that gives you, and you can take the big bets. Is that something that you try to foster as you advise, as you've moved into more of an advisory role to advise other startups? Is that what you're trying to get them to do, or are they already in that sort of startup mode and don't need that? I mean, where is that balance?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I in the startup world, depending on it depends at the on the stage you are in. But when I do this advising, I like to take a step back and really revisit with them, with the leadership, the values and the mission that they set up, and see what's the gap.
Hmm.
Where are you now in that product that actually is a testimony to the values you're abiding with, and that you want to follow. And so helping making this understanding of how everything is linked together, the
yeah,
product, the design, the user experience,
exactly.
the stakeholder, how do they align with the
Hmm.
values and the mission, and to be extremely focused and transparent on this um, gaps, if there are gaps, or at least on this
Got it.
objective
Got
to
it.
pursue.
Now, I want to add, you mentioned stakeholders, and that was interesting to me because I come from information security. So we always have an interesting relationship with
Hmm.
product because we come in like a wrecking ball on your roadmaps, with these requests that we have. How do you, for talking to, let's say you were talking to a CISO someplace who just had problem, who couldn't grasp how to work with product. What is the best way for
Hmm.
them to approach product? I mean, someone outside of it who sort of has a different point of view and a different sort of mission to kind of work together and align. What is the best advice you could give those folks?
Yeah, I think it starts with empathy. So everybody has an agenda, and for security, it's obviously security
Mm-hmm.
matters. But think of the product as the hub of everybody's agenda. So they have the security, they have the vendors, they have the engineers, they have the sales, marketing, and all that is what helps the product manager to constitute their roadmap and their prioritization. So the main difficulty for a product manager is to make understand their stakeholders that their top priority is not the top priority of the product as a whole, because there are other components. So I think this is this understanding that yes, security is extremely important, it's top of the list. However,
Yeah.
you
Yes.
know, however, basically. So there is this understanding of how critical is the input that need to be in put in place for that product, and
Yeah.
where in
Yeah.
line it is,
Yeah.
take a ticket basically, and see how that sits. And I
Sure.
understand it can be
Mm.
frustrating. I was working not that long ago with so this company, it was every time there was a support ticket, and a customer there needed to be a bug uh, fix, the roadmap would not have let that
Mhm.
time for that to sink in. So
Mm.
the bug fix would come a month and a half later or 2 months later, even though it
Mhm.
was like an iterative software that we would have releases every 2 weeks. So you need to redefine the entire way you're developing to allow for that space for the engineers to fix these bugs, so that
Right.
you gain the trust of the customers. Then the salespeople are happier with
Mhm.
the interaction that they have with the customer. You look more reactive and so forth. So everything has a cascading um, outcome, and so I think that's this understanding for every stakeholder to manage and to see what they're to really open the communication of what the expectations are, what's
Yeah.
your roadmap, and how does it mesh with
And that makes a lot of
with
sense. I
the
mean, the
product.
best product people I've worked with usually took that approach of, look, it's not you, it's us. We all have an agenda. We all have things that we need. You know, customers need things. We need things. So that's a perfect answer. I love that answer. Now that also sort of dovetails into something you said earlier, where you talked about giving, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. You said it much more eloquently than I will, but it's giving the customers what they need rather than what they want. So, you know, they wanted a faster ATM, but what they needed
Mhm.
was a mobile phone app that would help them get the cash faster. Um, how do you,
Mhm.
again, it's sort of variation on a theme. How do you foster that in the companies that you advise? How do you get them to shift into that mindset? Because it's a very easy trap to fall into. We need to, the customers keep asking for this, you know, so we should give it to them rather than what you were saying.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and that's very much what happens. CEOs falling under the pressure of pleasing their main customer, and so that they feel they are listened to, and then they can trust the company, and then they pour more
Mm,
budget into that service, and so forth. But it's really, so that's why I think it's fundamental to have um, these meetings I was mentioning earlier, where you really
Mm.
talk about the values and the mission of the company, and how much you're actually
mm,
derailing because of
Yeah.
that one customer that you're trying to please.
Right.
Granted, that may be your only customer and they are very important and you can't do without them. However, then the pitfall of becoming a service company, uh, then your product becomes
mm,
has another purpose than what you set it up before, and it's very hard, and that's how you start accumulating uh, technical debt, because
hmm
you're doing something very custom for a very specific use. So really opening up that open dialogue of, yes, I understand this customer is extremely important and we need to cater to them. However, if we keep on doing that, here is in 6 months where we will be, in 1 year where we'll be, and we'll have to uh, backpedal and undo what we are doing. So to be very aware of that, and helping the leadership take a big breath and think through, why are we so tight with this client? Can't we have another one? Can we ask for more VC money? Can we, what are the other things that may give us some relief?
That makes a lot of sense. There's a saying here in the U.S. You probably heard it: the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So you want to please that customer, but it's not always the right thing to do. And I think that's a really insightful. Bobby, I'm going to go and pass it to you.
Okay, so let's, Cristele, we're in the last kind of leg here. So I'm going to transition into just asking you a little bit about some of the major learnings you've gotten over the years in your career. And this could be related to product, it could be related to management, stakeholder management, just anything. Anything you think that our listeners who are product people and engineers wanting to be product people maybe could really use and learn from. Are there any kind of nuggets of wisdom that you would like to tell us about or share with our listeners?
Yeah, I think I'm going to say something like very obvious or very very obvious, is companies are made of people, and so that really is the main thing to retain, is that it's the people who make the company. And so when it comes to people management, I think it's very important to recognize everybody's skills and everybody's what they add to the company. The management style I've been trying to craft over the years is really to understand who I'm talking with, and adapt the direction or mentorship I give them accordingly. So, for example, when I do product design review, I'm going to point out the things that don't work, and if I'm talking with a senior designer, that I'm going to leave it at that and let them figure out how to fix to think through, give me a chance on the next iteration. If it's the more junior, then I will nudge a little bit more into the solution. And so that's a very specific example, but that shows how the adaptability that you need to perform in order to talk through and have your ideas moving forward.
Yeah. So is that is a right takeaway that how to value each person individually on the team and what they bring to the table, whether it's junior or senior?
I think it's really I'm a big believer of where you have these skills that you're very good at, and then you have these other skills that you are kind of mediocre at it. And so when you do reviews, some people tend to go with you need to improve that mediocre thing. But I think
I love that. Yeah,
I think it's fine to be mediocre. You just need to be really excellent at what you love to do. And so my goal is to really push that in people. So to push to recognize where you're good at and become excellent at it. And the other thing, you can improve a little bit, but if you don't, for example, I don't like cooking. I'm going to learn to do 2 or 3 safe dishes, but that's about it. I'm never gonna be a cook because I have no interest in that. So that's this idea that you really need to become excellent at what you love to do, and then it's not a job anymore, and the rest will follow. So that's what I'm to determine um, with my teams? What do you
Yeah.
want to be? Where do you see yourself later?
hmm Yeah. Like double down on what you're good at, um, and focus on that. And the other stuff, make sure you're competent at it. You can't be a disaster on the other stuff, but
Exactly. Yeah.
you're not necessarily putting in all your effort trying to learn this secondary, tertiary skill set. I think that makes a lot of sense. What about like, what have you learned over the years with like just the evolution of product management? You know, it's obviously changed over the course of time. What do you think is changing now, whether it's AI or last few years of some new product frameworks that have come out or new ways of thinking about product? Like, how have you seen it change and where do you think it's kind of headed going into the future?
Um, I think it's or maybe I hope it's going towards more of an art of being a product manager. So it started with engineers becoming project managers and then product managers. That was very so what
Yeah,
that brought was a lot of technicality and a little less creativity. And I think
right.
there is this trend now that product managers should be very flexible and comfortable with ambiguity and see where the trend is going, and not trying to really
hmm
be prescriptive into
Yeah,
future, but more like recognizing and aiming for a direction, and then constantly iterating on how to follow that direction and how to get there in smaller
right.
increments. And so this is this art I'm talking about, is this ability to
Exactly.
go to the moon, but without
The art.
tracing a right, a straight road to it necessarily.
Yeah, I love that. It's interesting that the art part of it. Um, a CEO friend of mine recently retooled his whole business it's a product engineering organization actually, from being this typical setup of product rights requirements, puts everything into tickets, throws it over the wall to engineering. Engineering goes and executes on it, and then comes back with saying what's next or whatever. And he switched from that into engineering was going to get way more involved in product, was going to understand how what the user's needs were, um, and maybe write some of their own tickets, while product focused on making sure the big outcomes were achieved. And so they were writing these PRDs with all the outcomes, and product would constantly keep coming back to engineering saying, hey, are your requirements aligning with these outcomes? And it started working wonderfully, and then things started going so much faster when engineering and product together were working on what the customer wants and solving for that, and product stayed at a certain level, thinking about, are we delivering what the customer needs, wants, etc. So it definitely seems like not just product management, but engineering management is also changing, and the way people do agile and all this stuff is like starting to change. Do you think that's true? Have you seen changes yourself in the recent years?
Yeah, definitely. And I think maybe the remote work is also a factor
Like a cause of it? Yeah.
because you work better when you know the why, and I think
Oh yeah. hmm
it's less and less
So true.
true that, and especially when you're working remotely, you want to know why you're doing what you're doing. It's not just going to do your 9 to 5, going to work as if you were working in a factory and coming back, to it's more fluid than that. And so you, as an
Right.
engineer, you constantly think of the issue that you're trying to solve. And I think it's important to feel part a part of the company, especially when you're isolated at home, then if you understand the big picture and if you're part of the big picture, then it's easier to come up with the right solutions for your
Yeah.
business, and you feel
Yeah.
really connected to your employees like that. I think
Yeah.
there's this sentence that I hate, and I hear it less and less, is, "Oh, this is above my paycheck." I hate this because
Right.
that's
I
true.
hate it too.
So this is something that
Yeah.
um, everybody has an impact on the company, and it's
Yeah.
clear when you let
Yeah.
people decide what they the best outcome.
Right. Yeah, I know what you're saying, and I hate that sentence too. And I'm always promoting the people who don't talk like that, who are always going, above and beyond, and just really, really passionate about why are we doing this? Like you said early on in this discussion about like the ATM machine example and stuff, like why are we doing this all in the first place anyway? And when engineers and product people all are very clear on that, it just makes for a way better product. One question to you, slightly controversial maybe, but why don't companies, in your opinion, why don't companies spend more time explaining the why to their employees? Like they spend a lot of time talking about the greatness of the company, all hands meetings and things like that, but they don't really get into the why we're doing it. It's like a few people at the top know the why, and then everybody else is just meant to kind of just do whatever the people at the top are saying. When if the people at the top take a little bit of time explaining the why on a consistent basis, it'll really revolutionize like everyone on the team. Why do you think it's like that?
Yeah, I'm not sure why. Maybe uh, it's just being caught up into your next um, your quarter revenues,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
being in that rat race, and not taking that time to really explain what's the purpose of the company. So
right.
that's something that Meta was actually very good at doing in their quarterly
Mm-hmm.
meetings, to really take a look at what was achieved, and then what needed to be achieved, and why it was
Yeah,
important, and why it was why
yeah,
that direction was taken. So I think this
yeah.
is really important. That's something I do also um, in my weekly meetings, is before
Mm,
going into the dailies and the to do for this week, and all that, reiterating what are the goals for this quarter, why are we doing it can be just one sentence. You don't need to have a
exactly.
Jose,
Yeah,
but, remember, this quarter we are really focusing on
Mhm.
XYZ because of
right.
ABC, and then moving on with
Mm-hmm.
the dailies.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
Mishka, we got
We
to
do.
use that, buddy. Every week, reinforce it every week. That's great, Crystal. Last question, and it's going to be about AI. We can't have a podcast in 2024 without talking about AI. Which side of the fence are you on in terms of, is AI going to totally take over product and engineering? Is it going to be a useful tool, something else? Like any thoughts on the AI impact on product and engineering?
Yeah, I think I'm using AI a lot
Hmm.
to small things like proofreading, all the way to
Mm,
getting the list of the different methodologies for product management.
yeah,
And small, it really is something that helps adjust. But there is a frenzy with AI right now, and I think the
mm,
Mhm.
misuse of AI is really real. Um, and we've seen that in the early days of AI, like 10 years ago, with this banking scandal that you may remember.
right.
But so I think we are not far from having this experience again. So this is
Yeah,
really something that is uh, helping engineering teams, product teams, design teams. But when it comes to data and learning curve, then this needs to really be thought through and really carefully
yeah,
um, uh, carefully modeled, and so that's the main pitfall that I see in AI.
That's interesting. I'm in the camp of, maybe it's an extreme camp, but I think AI is going to really massively impact um, product product management, engineering management. Um, so of course there's like the tools, for individual contributors and stuff, but just the way product engineering is managed even, I think is going to change so much because you have these incredible AIs now that are coming out that can do so much thinking for you. Somebody showed me a demo the other day of an AI tool that looks at your roadmap and figures out if there's going to be any slippage and maps it all out for you. And then also they were beginning to develop this capability of identifying like whether the ROI was going to be there on the roadmap using metrics and stuff that they had gathered. So yeah, I think we're in for a sea change. I think in our industry, software engineering, product management, of course, I think everything is going to change next 2 or 3 years. But that's just me. I could be completely wrong.
No,
Um,
that's
we'll have to see.
yeah, definitely. The road mapping, that's something I'm very excited about, because that's a part. The prediction is a
Yeah.
part that takes an incredible amount of time for leadership
Right.
to figure out, and that's
Yeah.
extremely time consuming, and it's infinite options basically. So
Yeah.
having that. Being able to be handled by AI, that's the most useful tool for a product, I think, that
Hmm.
may occur.
Yep, absolutely. You can make decisions so much faster, I think, with AI, especially like in boardrooms and executive team meetings and all that. When you're talking about product strategy and all this information, it's already at our fingertips, but the ability for AI to like synthesize it all and give us the optionality and the recommendations and the insights, like just incredibly powerful. Anyway, I think we're at the end of our time. It was a pleasure talking with you today, Christelle.
Same here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I always learned so much talking to you, and I'm sure our listeners learned a lot from this discussion. Mishka, I want to thank you as well.
Oh, happy to be a part of this. I learned a lot as well.
This was great. And thank you to the listeners for tuning in. I'll see you all next time on the Technocratic podcast. In the meantime, keep the sharks swimming.